Oh my gosh, man, it's happening! It's happening! It's happening! Earlier in today's show, we spoke about Vancouver Canucks forward Jake DeBrusk and the idea of him getting traded to Columbus for the 14th overall pick. But it turns out, it's not just Jake DeBrusk that could be on the block. Yesterday, we spoke about Elias Pettersson. Guess what? There's more to that story today. We also have some updates on Brock Boeser. As much as I love Brock, as much as you love Brock, as much as Vancouver Canucks fans love BB6, we do have some trade updates to go over, and it's all courtesy of our very, very good friend, Pierre Lebrun, who made an appearance on 880 Ched, Edmonton's News, Today's Talk with Bob Stouffer. Oilers Now. This segment was posted yesterday, and LeBrun goes out there and essentially talks about a number of things. He goes over the Mike Babcock investigation, the Columbus situation. Obviously, it's relevant to the Oilers and their beat because, Mike Babcock could be an Oiler. Who knows? And this is, of course, an Oilers-centric radio program. But courtesy of Canucks News Summaries, there were a number of other things that Pierre Lebrun spoke about in regards to the Vancouver Canucks on this 880 Ched radio program. We can skip the Dylan Larkin conversation because we just made a video about that earlier today as well. Here's what Pierre Lebrun talks about in regards to EP40. Elias Pettersson, Brock Boeser, and obviously Jake DeBrusk are definitely available. The Canucks, according to LeBrun, want to tear it all down. LeBrun also thinks that the Canucks would be willing to retain on Elias Pettersson's contract. Some teams doubt they can revitalize him. The Canucks have talked to teams and are willing to move Pettersson, but LeBrun isn't sure if they can. There then is an update on Brendan Gallagher. The Canucks and Canadiens have talked about Gally. He mentions how we don't know what kind of an asset the Canucks are asking to acquire in order to take him on. That's an interesting piece of news because courtesy of Rick Dhaliwal last week, I think talks were trending in the direction that if the Vancouver Canucks were going to acquire Brendan Gallagher in some sort of a move, they might actually have to give up an asset, like a fourth or a fifth or something, because Gallagher and his contract, yeah, it's bad, but we're not in a flat cap world anymore. So maybe the incentive of, we can take on this Gallagher contract so you can get some more freed up money, Montreal. We can help you out. Just give us a draft pick. It doesn't seem to be that straightforward anymore compared to a few years ago. So I do find it interesting that Pierre Lebrun's update is, hey, maybe the Canucks will take on another asset in order to get Gallagher, an actual sweetener to get the contract. Who knows? But I wanted to focus on that Boeser and DeBrusk and Pettersson update as well. Vancouver was initially reported to not wanting to retain any money at all on Elias Pettersson, and that was always the narrative with Alvin and Rutherford. Going back to last season, Vancouver does not want to retain on any part of this contract that goes on till 2032. But now, with LeBrun pointing that some teams don't really feel confident they can bring Pettersson back to 100-point form, and that if Vancouver actually wants to get it done, they'll need to retain, that is a little bit of a red flag in my opinion. Obviously, it depends on how much. I know for us Canucks fans, we've gotten used to the Canucks having unnecessary big payments on their cap for years, from Luongo to OEL to all these other guys. I mean, Pettersson's contract would be on the books till 2032. If he gets bought out, then that contract would go even longer, and the Canucks would have even more of a penalty that would extend into, well, it would really depend on when he gets bought out, if that ever transpires. But the Canucks could, unfortunately, see a reality where most of the 2030s is dominated by some sort of an Elias Pettersson tax, even if he's not on the team. They don't want to retain. At least that's what it was reported earlier in the year. But now, LeBrun's reporting that maybe the Canucks would be willing to retain. That is very, very interesting. Brock Boeser is mentioned as a potential name on the block, and honestly, I feel like for everything you could say about Jake DeBrusk, you could kind of take those building blocks and put it towards Brock Boeser, just put into different categories. Like, oh, you could talk about Jake DeBrusk and his power play goal scoring. Well, Brock Boeser doesn't score as much on the power play, but he does get some goals at even strength. You can talk about the versatility of a Jake DeBrusk. Well, there's the fanfare of a Brock Boeser. Boeser's slower than DeBrusk. Boeser is not one of these guys that I think is going to beat somebody for the puck on a pretty nice race down the boards. He's not that guy. Maybe he was at one point, but I don't think he's that anymore. At the end of the day, though, Brock is a guy that wanted to come back to Vancouver. He was going through a pretty ugly free agent negotiation last year, and inevitably, after the Canucks missed out on signing Christian Dvorak, they used all the money they had saved up to go back to Brock and be like, okay, fine, we can sign you. Come back here, buddy. Let's hug it out. And that seems to be what they did, metaphorically, because Brock Boeser wanted to be a Canuck. He did not want to go anywhere else. And he followed up a 50-point season in 75 games with 48 points in 75 games. Admittedly, not that bad. The team sucked in 25-26 after all. You also have the 40-goal season and 73-point campaign in 23-24 that Boeser was able to accomplish, plus 7 goals and 12 points in 12 games in the playoffs. Brock made himself known as a total stud, and unfortunately, the playmaker that allowed him to exhibit this efficiency and productivity, JT Miller, was gone the next year. Obviously, we understand that Boeser and Elias Pettersson have some sort of a deep connection. I mean, they've been friends ever since Pettersson debuted, essentially, in 2018. Sure, you can say that it seemed like Pettersson was maybe a little closer with Hughes at some point, but EP40 and BB6 were always the dream pair when it comes to Vancouver offense up front. JT was on there a little bit as well. Remember the 649 lotto line? Good times, eh? But now, thinking about Brock Boeser potentially being available, according to Pierre Lebrun, that is quite intriguing, and something that I didn't expect to see out of this management core, assuming it's true, of course. Pierre Lebrun goes out there and says, I've talked to some teams over the last few days that say that Pettersson is definitely available, so is Boeser, so is DeBrusk, they want to tear it down. Here are what some Canucks fans are saying in response to that. Ian says, keep Brock in my opinion. Jordan said they should all be available at the right price. If they can't get value for Pettersson, there's no point. Boeser and DeBrusk should be targeting first-round draft picks. Okay, I don't think Boeser gets traded for a first, not in 2026. Maybe if it was 2 years ago, definitely. But I do not know if that is what's going to go down this time around. Crazy to see Boeser is a minus 73 in the last 2 years. Gotta think he's got a better game in his belt than that, and a new team might unlock that 23-24 form again and make it more consistent. Well, I'll tell you, if Brock Boeser wants to get back to 40-goal form, all he's got to do is get a trade done with the Rangers and then go over to play with Miller one more time. How does that sound? With that said, though, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. How do you feel about this Vancouver Canucks trade update? LeBrun says that Pettersson, Boeser, and DeBrusk are available. The fact that DeBrusk is available doesn't surprise me. We already made a video about him earlier. But Boeser? That is very, very interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.